Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. Feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out. 2 ways to do this is through email and YouTube. Okay, so, as I mentioned about hearing ad, auditorily, you can hear that through different platforms, major platforms, for instance, Pandora, Spotify, and I think maybe Amazon Music, those platforms and so forth. So keep a listen out for that, the Harboring Light. All right, so I'm on a lot of different platforms, so it won't be hard to find me too. So with that spiel out of the way, onto the topic. So this time we're going to focus on more specifics of folklore, more specifics of Japanese folklore about spring, and then get into the broad aspects about globally about folklore and spring. Here we go. Okay, so as I mentioned about the cherry blossom, I mentioned earlier about Japanese folklore. I just find it quite interesting about the depths in it, and the layers that goes with folklore, because it's a very interesting take on. Hey, Pipe, just keep it right there, okay? That's enough. Hold on. Hey, Pipe, come on, let's go. All right, okay. All right, sorry about that, girl. So, because it connects, even though it's, quote unquote, supposed to be the primitive way of viewing the world, it's very interwoven in the aspects of how it lays a foundation about the archetypes. So archetypes are, without going into details, that's kind of self-explanatory. Pretty much you get the essence. Everybody understands what that is. But anyway, stories that is supposed to be already written and told to expel. This is from my point of view. If y'all have other nuances about it, more explanations about it, feel free to reach out to me. About characters and the moral lessons or so forth, lesser extents that you're supposed to be learned from them. And so that's what should be carried on in the way in which to see this specifically about folklore. So when you get into folklore about spring, it's also interesting because what is it saying about the seasonal aspects of what spring brings to our lives in general. So with this said, I'm going to get into this podcast is going to probably be rather short because I'm just getting straight to the point here. I'm going to get into some facts about the aspects of Japanese folklore about spring and then globally about spring. Okay, so excuse me just a minute. Alright, so I'm going to look these things up right quick here. Alright. Okay, so alright, so first Japanese here. No, just sit down. All right, so springtime legends, the mythical creatures that bloom with the flowers. So, the symbolism of spring in Japanese mythology. Spring in Japanese mythology is not merely a change in weather, it embodies the essence of renewal, growth, and fleeting nature of beauty. So, the arrival of the Sakura is the central theme in these stories, symbolizing the transcendent beauty of life. So, cultural importance of the Sakura. So, as I mentioned about the cherry blossom, but also themes of renewal, and many legends emphasize the themes of rebirth and transformations, being a parallel in the blossoming of flowers with the cycles of life and death. Now, life cycle. Spring reflects the cycle of nature of existence, where death leads to rebirth, much like the way in which nature gives way to the vibrant blooms of spring. And this is very significant in the aspects of how traditionally, especially in Asian cultures, specifically Japanese culture, nature is very prevalent in the way in which, the culture moves and shapes itself. And so, mythology re-embodies all of these things and these, and how, this all displaces oneself, when you move on to different generations. Now, the yokai of spring, mischievous spirits in their folklore. So the yokai are supernatural creatures in Japanese folklore. They are often depicted as playful and mischievous. Now, these spirits embody the essence of natural world, influence human life in a various ways, so especially during springtime. So among the notable yokai is associated with this season is the Yamayuba, or the mountain witch. And witches, to a lot of extent, for a lot of different cultures have very, specific, mystic, either good or bad, renderings. Hush, baby, renderings, and that has to do a lot about the cultural landscape in which it's coming from. For instance, Greek mythology to start out with, that's a staple. But most of the time, the way in which these gods and goddesses are moving about themselves in these stories is a reflection of how, the Greek, citizens, have their worldviews about everything in itself. All right, so she is known for her connection to nature and her ability to control plants and animals. So Yuba's tales. So many stories tell of Yuba helping lost travelers by providing them with herbs and flowers, showcasing her nurturing aspects. Interaction with humans. So these yukai often play tricks on humans during the hamarai, during among the blossoms, or causing mischief during festivals. Now, the fox spirits and the cherry blossoms. So during spring festivals dedicated to the Ankara, the Estun are believed to appear in their true form, often amidst the blooming cherry trees. So this symbolizes fertility and prosperity. Now, transformations. Legend has it that it tells that the Kistun also can transform into a beautiful woman during the Hammurabi. So encanting onlookers with their beauty, only to disappear when the blossoms fall. It's quite interesting because, so for those who know and for those who don't know, manga and anime. So manga and anime are very, reflective about a lot of social commentary that it has to do with modern aspects of Asian culture. And so this is very reflective in me thinking about Naruto and how, when he would do his what was the best way to describe this? His mischievous or masters of illusions, that you want to say. This is one of his tricks, and it's also a lot of things that were dispelled, that are dispelled in a lot of anime, that come from, I see, baby, real life instances from very profound spiritual aspects of Japanese culture, and also all that is quite interesting how that, evolves itself in manga and anime. All right, so the Tengu, Gardens of the Mountains and Blooming Valleys. So the Tengu are a class of supernatural beings in Japanese folklore, often depicted as part human or part bird. They are known as guardians of the mountains and are closely associated with the natural world during the vibrant spring seasons. So in many tales, the Tengu are portrayed as protectors of the forests and valleys, ensuring that nature flourishes during springtime. So protectors of nature, the Tengu, are said to promote the growth of plants and flowers, garnering the sankara trees as they bloom. Challenges to humans. So some stories recount encounters between Tengu and the humans during Hamarami, where Tengu may challenge individuals to prove their worthiness or respect for nature. So, the No mask. They represent the representation of spring creatures. So the No theater is a traditional form of Japanese drama that preserves the stories of mythical beings throughout performances. So the whole idea of the theater, of this specific theater, is emphasizing the connection between art and mythology. So various No masks represent spring-related creatures, capturing their essence and significance in storytelling. So the role of Noah theater. So Noah plays often depicting the beauty of spring and the interaction between human and mythical beings, using masks to embody their characters. So spring-related masks. Masks like the Yama-uba or the Estun are commonly used to represent the themes of renewal and transformation associated with spring. Alright, so to end with this, legendary flowers with their mythical guardians. Beyond sakura, other flowers in Japanese culture carry their own legends and mythical beings that protect or symbolize them. So understanding these connections also is a guideline to enrich the appreciation of Japanese floral heritage. So the wisteria. Often associated with love and longevity, the wisteria is said to be guarded by a flower goddess who blesses those who admire the beauty. Plum blossoms. These flowers symbolizes the preservation of hope, often linked with spirits that safeguard the blooms during the cold of early spring. So these legends continue to influence contemporary celebrations such as flower festivals and cultural events, emphasizing the enduring connections between nature and mythology. So I'm going to wrap up here, and then I'm going to move on to more global aspects of mythology and spring. Okay, so here we go. Alright, so getting right back into it here. That's all. Okay. Alright, so now this is spring explained by ancient gods and myths. Alright, so let's go on to this. Alright, so let's start out with, because I already spoke about Persephone. So let's go to this god, the great mother of the gods, the resurrection of the plants. So worship of the great mother of the gods is believed to have begun in modern day Turkey. Now she was described as the mother of everything, so the mountains to gods. Without her, there would be no life. So in Rome, she was worshipped under the name Sybil, I think. So there, she was primarily seen as a goddess of agriculture, fertility, and resurrection. She was also credited with making plants flourish. So unlike some agriculture gods, she was a brutal figure who demanded sacrifice to bring life back into spring. So the most famous myth about Cybele involves her relationship with another earth god called Attis. So the most popular version of the myth, Attis fell in love with a human woman, even though she was Cybele's lover. So furious at the betrayal of Cybele, cursed him. Under the influence of her cruel magic, he violently injured himself and eventually died. So Cybele also was overwhelmed with regret, and along with the help of Zeus is very notorious about being in the intermingles of all this, with all the mishap here with the gods and goddesses here. The king of the gods, she brought Attis back from the dead. So both Cybele and Attis are associated with plants, and his torment and death symbolizes the way that plants die off in the winter. So bringing back Attis from the dead was thought to resurrect the plants. So in the Roman Empire, Cybele was honored every spring with what is believed to have been an extreme debauchery festival, which may have included very, serious things going on, and a ritual human sacrifice. It's not shocking, but that's eye-opening there. All right, so let's go on to the, forgive me for the pronunciation, I'll do my best to pronounce this, the Chinook wind brings from the warm weather. So the term Chinook wind refers to sudden, sometimes violent winds which blow through the American West at the beginning of the spring. So these winds come around Washington and Oregon State, which is the ancestral home of the Chinook people, and become more powerful as they blow east. So the Chinook winds bring extreme temperature changes within them. Often after Chinook winds have passed through, it will be between 25 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. So the indigenous people who live in these regions were well aware of these winds and had stories about them. So in one story titled A Blackfoot Story, to be exact, recounted in when a bear stole the Chinook. So the Chinook wind is captured by the great bear, which makes winter last until it is freed by the intrepid young boy from the Sika tribe and his animal friends. So in other legends, the Chinook wind is a sediment being, bringing warm weather on purpose. So one of these, recorded by the anthropologist Arthur C. Ballard via the Burke Museum, depicted a war between the North Wind, who wants to make winter last forever, and the Storm Wind, son of the Chinook wind, who must violently avenge his father and chase winter away. Okay. No, put that in there. Away. Pick it up for me, baby. Avenge his father and chase winter away every year. So Bridge was the embodiment of spring. Let's get into this. So this is Ireland mythology. So in Ireland, the beginning of spring is celebrated on February 1st, which is known as St. Bridge Day. So the Catholic legend of St. Bridge is described as a girl who converted to Christianity and became Ireland's first nun. So St. Bridge Day is a straw. What you do is have a straw effigy of the saint and is put into the ocean. So the tradition may seem very strange, but it hints at a much older spring celebration which predates Christianity. For the aspects of what we get to Norwegian, that the sort of culture about very ancient aspects of, can say somewhat paganistic rituals and stuff. That's what it reminds me of too. All right, so let's get back to it. Okay, this tradition. Okay, I said that. So Bridge or Brid was the goddess of the spring season and was considered among the most powerful of the Celtic gods. Okay, so before she was a saint, Bridge was a goddess. Let's say that. Let's bring that to forth and get back to what I just said. So, this makes sense about how this is a folklore about her. Because of this aspects of being a goddess. So the most powerful of the Celtic gods. So she was a part of the trinity of her own, three goddesses called the Bridge, who were also aspects of the same deity. So ancient believers saw Bridge as a goddess of many things, from fire to poetry, but she also may have been best known as a goddess of spring, who brought fertility to people and the land alike. So modern St. Bridget's Day falls on the same day as the festival which honored the goddess Bridge. So the symbolic believers created huge bonfires and build reeds and effigies to honor Bridge and celebrate the return of spring. So Ashtar's son returned from the underworld. So the powerful ancient Babylonian deity Ashtar was the goddess of, sex, war, and storms. She is depicted as being chaotic and changeable, she is just as likely to ruin lives as on the other flip of the coin to save them.
Mama, can I watch my tablet?
No, not right now. And one famous legend, her tendency to make rash and violent decisions Then go inside.
No.
Then you have to be very patient. Transform the world forever. So Ashtar and her son named Tetsmoon, who she sent to live in the mortal world, is as described in Ashtar and Tetsmoon, a Babylon myth of seasons. He became known as the Green One, and the humans and animals alike flocked to him to celebrate how he made the world beautiful and lush with plant life. So at first, Ashtar was profound, but as he became more and more beloved, her pride turned to jealousy and she struck him down. So with Tetsmoon dead, all of the plant life therefore died too. So the world became a desolate place, which was full of starvation, drought, and sorrow. So Ashtar was grieving with this too, and she traveled to the underworld to take Tetsmoon back. There, Ashtar had to bargain with his sister Alalatu, and the terrifying half-lioness queen of the dead. So in the end, Ashtar was able to bring Tetsmoon back to life. Hold on, let me finish. But only if he would return to the underworld for half of the year. So this was the ancient Mesopotamian explanation of the changing of the season as well. So when Tetsmoon is in the underworld, everything is barren. But on the other coin of this, when it's spring, that he returns. He transforms the world into an advanced paradise. So Mars trades spring for sacrifice. So the god Mars is generally known as the god of war. But in ancient Rome, Sparta, and Greece, he was considered responsible for more than just the military. It is believed that he was worshipped in both the spring and fall. So when new growth began and when crops were harvested. So the name of the month of March specifically is when spring begins in Italy. And it is exactly named for the god Mars, or its rise from the dead. So life in ancient Egypt was possible because of the flooding of the Nile River. So the floods could be deadly and destructive, but they also made the land very fertile. So an agricultural oasis as in the desert, to say that. So this apparent contradiction is a reflection in the most important gods in the ancient Egyptian pantheon, Horus. So the ancient Egyptian calendar only has 3 seasons: the Shimu, when crops were ready for harvest; the Akhent, when the Nile flooded; and the Perth, which is most closely related to spring because it is when plants begin to sprout. So Horus is both the god of death and the god of agriculture, and was thought to be personally responsible for making the Nile flood and the plants grow. So the Gomang brings the harvest. So in China, there is a traditional ceremony that depicts that. Well, you know what? You can go in. Let me finish what I'm doing. So in China, there is a traditional ceremony that dates back hundreds of years to celebrate the coming of spring.
Can I get some yogurt?
Yes, ma'am. It is also designed to ensure a good harvest for the community by winning the favor of the very important god. So the ceremony lasts all day and includes the ritual plowing of a field, singing and chanting that welcomes the new season, and giving offerings of flowers through the Goman. So the Morami lives in the mountain. So where's this from? So the Navajo Pueblo people. So most spring gods are believed to be responsible for bringing warm weather and new plant growth. But for people living in what is now the southwestern part of the United States, the spirit of the spring also creates some less pleasant, so very unpleasant weather. Hell, to be exact. According to stories from indigenous tribes, including the Navajo and the Pueblo, the world had four corners. It was thought that there were tall mountains at each corner of the world, and each was home to the spirit of one of the four seasons. So these spirits were often in competition with each other over what the world should be like. So while the spirits of the warmer seasons love foliage, okay, baby, the spirits of the warmer seasons love foliage. The spirits of the fall found plants repulsive and worked to contradict this every year, causing the change in seasons. So the spirit of the spring is known as the Motoyama. This is described in the ethnograph of the American Southwest. So his spirit has a staff that is used to control the weather. So the Motoyama's staff creates hailstorms. While this power sets him apart from other spring gods and goddesses, hailstorms can be a major part of spring in the region where Motoyamas believers live, where the balls of ice falling from the sky can be as wide as 3 inches. The Yellow rides in on a white horse. So this is from, what region is this from? Let me look at this. Okay, Slavic. Okay. So this is a Slavic legend. So the Yalolo is a beautiful god that is always barefoot, wearing all white, riding a white horse and wearing a crown made of flowers. So he is male, but he is described as very feminine. So despite his soft and gentle appearance, Yalo is one of the most powerful gods in Slavic legends and demands human sacrifice to bring back the harvest. So described in Slavic sorcery, Yalo was worshipped in the festival at the beginning of the spring. So believers would gather wearing wildflowers in their hair and joining hands to dance in circles. Some believe that this ceremony became increasingly chaotic and fringe and often very intoxicating, and then the aspects of, very, devious behavior in the aspects of that. All right, so Baal returns from the underworld. So this is Syrian and Liberian and Israeli and Jordan culture. So the Canaanites legend, who believes lived in modern day, as I said, are the god Baal was responsible for the changing of the seasons. So Baal was predominantly the god of storms, but in this mostly harsh and arid region, rainstorms were seen as an incredible thing, and they restored their land. So as a result, Baal was beloved rather than feared. So this is Mexican culture. So the Taklok controls the rain. So in ancient Aztec god, Taklok was seen as being unpredictable as the weather that he controls. Sometimes he was humanity's savior, creating the rains that made the crops grow. And he could also be very violent and bloodthirsty god, leaving the world dry and barren. Alright, so with that said, this reaches the end. So, I'd like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me. And the best way to do that is through YouTube and email. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so very much. Alright, so this reaches the end of the Harvard Light. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.